going to start?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right, I'm Mikey Sklar, and I think I know most of you guys already. So, I'm from TRC. My girlfriend and I live there, and we do kind of a homesteading thing. So we're always kind of looking at ways to augment a standard homestead with like digital assistance, because it's a lot of work to just water plants all day and try to make food in a town that has no restaurants and all that. So food's become a real priority in our lives, from the garden, cooking in the kitchen, and last year we kind of reached a point where we got to a point where we really needed a way to cook more meals without having to be standing over a stove cooking more meals. So I made a controller and it does all sorts of things. So that's what this whole talk will be about. And after the talk, we're going to build some kits. Anyone who wants to buy a kit, $60, or you can just get one assembled for 80 and run off with it and do the same thing we do. So I'll give you some history about how this kit was built, and I'm going to show about 4 different applications here. One of them I'm not going to show because I don't want to carry a refrigerator in. But I will describe it in detail how that application works. But my background, I was a sysadmin for years, so I kind of had a programming hardware background, and now I kind of just make open source hardware kits. And how this controller, this is the controller we'll be talking about tonight that is going to be controlling all our stuff. This controller originally came into existence, kind of had 3 different events that occurred in our lives that made this appear. One is we do a yearly event, Enter the Consequences, for homesteaders. So we invite people who have blogs and blog about their homesteading urban experiences all over the country. They kind of fly in and we have a little conference, and we teach each other skills like how to make tempeh, or how to make cheese, or how to weld, or bike repair, various types of workshops, and everyone kind of just gets up and teaches a workshop and has a lot of suggestions. And while we were there, we had a tempeh making workshop, which, is everyone familiar with tempeh?
No. Explain
No.
it. I've seen it on the web.
Okay. Tempeh is soybeans that have been soaked and inoculated with a mushroom culture. It's some sort of mycelium that will grow in between all of the soybeans, and it within 24 hours, if you can hold a warm enough temperature, you have to hold 90 degrees for 24 hours, which is kind of tricky in most environments, because at night it gets cold and you need a light or something. So this mycelium, this mushroom culture, forms around the soybeans and makes them more digestible. It's fermenting them. So it's popular food for vegetarians and vegans. And it's kind of a bitch to make, because you got to hold this high temperature for 24 hours. So we had a workshop on how to do that, and the guy who came in is a real technical guy. He programs, is doing a lot of Nixie tube stuff right now, and he was using a reptile egg timer to hold temperature. And if I don't know, has everyone ever had reptiles and a reptile egg timer in their life? It's a piece of crap. It's like this little metal thing, and these metals heat up. It's like totally inaccurate, and it kept falling over, and it's really ridiculous. And here we had like 3 or 4 people that were all into hardware design and circuit design and stuff, and we're using a reptile egg timer. So we're like, well, we can do better than this egg timer. So that was one thing that got me on the temperature controller kick. Another is we had a really fancy refrigerator. We had like a $2,000 Super Energy Star upright fridge, and it was like 20 cubic feet. We could probably get a family of 2 in there. And fit them in there. It was really big, and it died. And it was like within 5 years of owning it, it died. And we called the refrigeration guy out, and he was like, "Oh, that'll be like $500." And it's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna spend some money on a fridge." So we switched. We read about people using chest freezers as refrigerators, and basically a chest freezer is really efficient because it's small, it has a small compressor, it's really well insulated, and you open the top, all the cold air stays in. So we converted our home fridge over to a chest fridge, but of course we needed something to maintain the temperature, so this got built pretty quickly for that purpose. And then finally, after I built the controller for our refrigerator, I was kind of thinking, well, I keep seeing all this stuff in like the blog world around geek cooking. There's a O'Reilly book that came out last year.
Yeah, I got that. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's Cooking for Geeks by Jeff something. If you haven't seen that book, it's a really good book. You can buy it or steal it.
It's like a bestseller.
It's cheap. You can download
Yeah.
a digital copy, I think, for $9.
Okay. Yeah, you should probably do that. And it's a great book, and he gets into some really sort of exotic styles of cooking. So since I already had this temperature controller built for my fridge, I was thinking, well, I want to do these crazy styles of cooking. So he gets into sous vide cooking, which is cooking in a vacuum in a water bath. And I don't know if he does. I don't think he gets into fermentation chambers, but you know, it's a really fascinating book on many levels. He does a lot of liquid nitrogen tricks. So that was constantly in the blog world. So I was really thinking, like, well, we gotta get into this geek cooking because we're always cooking. So
you're a geek.
Yeah.
Hurry.
So that's how this temperature controller came into the world. And I guess first I'll kind of talk about our primary usage of the controller. So in our house, we got controllers everywhere. There's like 5 controllers at any time running. There's lights on. And the display's a little too bright, so it's kind of like red everywhere. So in the kitchen, we have a chest freezer, and that's our new refrigerator, a 5 cubic foot, so it's a pretty small space. And it actually works out really well having a small fridge, believe it or not, because now you're a little more on top of leftovers and what you have in your life, and you can run it at the lowest possible temperature without hitting freezing, so that your food will last as long as possible. And that's made a big difference, because before we live off grid, so trying to save power, I'd always be like cranking up the turning up the temperature higher in the refrigerator, and our food was just lasting like 3 days, and you have to toss it. So it helps having it more efficient so we can run it cold. Also, it's really quiet. When a big fridge compressor kicks on, it's like, and these little chest freezers are super quiet, so that's nice. And that's been our longest running temp controller device. So we've been doing that now for maybe, I don't know, 8 months? Maybe a little less than that. I don't know. Maybe we probably switched early fall or something. But yeah, so we have a chest freezer, but then we have another refrigerator. Now we have all this extra utility power back because we went from using about 2 kilowatt hours a day down to about 100 watt hours a day. So we're using about 1/20th, or no, it's a little more than that. It's about 1/8, about 250 watt hours a day. So we're using about 1/8 of the old refrigerator power. So now we can add more refrigerators, which is exactly what we did. So I went to a yard sale and picked up like a $5 dorm fridge that was still working. So that's like 1 cubic foot, it's like this size. And
is it a compressor-driven one or a
it's
Peltier one?
It's a compressor-driven. The Peltier ones tend to burn out pretty fast usually. And
yeah.
Maybe there's higher-end ones, but so it's a compressor-driven dorm fridge, and there's nothing efficient about those. You open the door and everything falls out, and they're not insulated well, and they're pretty loud for being so small. But we use that as our wine and cheese fridge. So it's a great thing. We make cheese every week. Get a few gallons of milk delivered, and I'll make 2 3-pound cheese wheels each week of like Romano and Monterey Jack, and screwed up a lot of cheddar cheeses. For some reason, our recipe book has got a really lousy cheddar recipe. It just comes out like a rock. But anyway, cheeses usually need to age for like 6 to 9 months, and they need a specific temperature of 50 degrees, and that's too warm for a normal fridge because they're generally running around 35 degrees. And you can buy these like Peltier-based wine fridges, which is what this was before I got to it. But they tend to die within a year because they're really a piece of crap. There's probably some better version, but. So we keep a separate wine and cheese fridge now, and that just holds everything at 50 degrees, so we can age our cheeses for up to 6 months. And so far, we've probably aged them up to 4 months, maybe, and then we ate it all. So.
With our cheese and our wine, we usually are so ready.
Yeah.
So we age it for like a day, and then we're like, okay, let's eat it, and let's drink it, and then 2 months later, the last bit's left, and we're like, oh, it would have been good if we
We've been trying to make enough cheese that we can actually wait that
squirrel away half each time.
We'll need another fridge for that.
The luck.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty good on fridges. So in terms of the cooling side of things, if you needed a temperature, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, like this controller is really designed for those kind of cooler temperatures, and hooking it up to a standard fridge to maintain them. So this is good for a lot of beer brewing, for aging it and stuff. It's like a